Hello, I'm Shirley Gordon. Our church is celebrating its 100th year anniversary with spotlights on auxiliaries, former members, descendants, former pastors that helped to make our church what it is today. Well, guess what? Our spotlight today is on Pastor Reverend Jimmy Jones. And who's going to tell us a little bit about him, as much as she can remember, is Sister Pat Bailey. Hello, Pat.
Good evening. How are you doing, Shirley?
I'm great. It is so nice for you to offer your information that you might have that we can share with the church. We know some great things happened while he was here. So I'm just going to shut up and let you tell us about it.
Well, thank you. And to my recollection, I'm going to try to remember as much as I can about Pastor Jones. Pastor Jones came to St. John in 1976. He came when St. John was known as St. John Baptist Church. To my knowledge, Pastor Jones, his wife Eula, daughter Janet, and Mrs. Jones' mother, Minnie Thomas, came from Pine Bluff, Arkansas. We affectionately called Mrs. Jones' mother. Until today, I really did not know her name. Reverend Jones was an anointed minister, a great speaker, a progressive thinker, and certainly a trendsetter. He was not only our pastor, but he was a businessman that put together deals within and outside of our church. He was our pastor for only a short time, but he made a huge impact and left a huge legacy. In this short tenure, he incorporated our church in 1977. He added greater to our name. We were then known as Greater St. John Missionary Baptist Church. The name change was necessary to broaden our presence in the community. That was the beginning step to building our new church. Our church was built by Baptiste Construction. I didn't know, nor do I remember all the ins and outs of the building of our church, but I certainly do remember how quickly Pastor Jones got the ball to rolling, to moving us from our old church to our new church. It was no longer just passing the trade to obtain money for the building fund. He had members pledging up to $500 each. Also, he reached out to his friends from all over the United States to donate towards our building. My sister Pam recalls helping him often in the church office to open envelopes and record donations in order to put the checks into the bank. She said there was always a lot of checks with substantial offerings that were received. Also under his fellowship, he had a pew rally to help us pay for the church pews. If I'm not mistaken, members purchased bricks that were installed in the church chapel. Pastor Jones has the church chapel named in honor of Reverend Bernard L. White. There's a bench in the chapel, and it was intended for you or someone from the outside that could go in and have a private conversation with the Lord and pray. Also, if a couple wanted to have a small, intimate wedding without using the church sanctuary, they could use the church chapel. Great number of members were on board trying to help fund the church building fund. I remember Mr. Charles Stafford selling barbecue dinners and donating all his profits to the church. From what I was told, Pastor Jones didn't break ground for the church until he had $100,000. Nowadays, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it was a lot of money in the late 1970s. Greater St. John Baptist Church had their dedication service starting October 6th through October 12th, 1980 at the church's 58th anniversary. The theme, "We've come this far by faith," and Sister Adeline Jones was the general chairman. The song was "Through It All." As we were building and moving into our church, Pastor Jones wanted transportation for the members of the church. He purchased an old school bus, and then later a red van. The Sunday morning breakfast was started to help pay for the church van. I recollect my mom, Allie McMorris, Mrs. Lucy Hyatt, Mrs. Annie Mae King, Mrs. Florida Green, Mrs. Berlin Hill, Mrs. Falkins, Mrs. Durrell, and many others starting fixing breakfast on Sunday mornings. Also, Pastor Jones had a huge deacon and trustee board that sat up front of the church. He just loved his deacons and his trustees. They wore all the same colors, suit and shirt. I also think they had a fall, winter, and a spring, summer suit. It had to be over 20 men at one time that served as deacons and trustees. I think some of them had duplicate roles. Some of the ones I remember is Mr. Aaron Dean, Mr. Brooks, Mr. James Sims, taking you back to Mr. Henry, Mr. Blaine, Mr. Earl Thompson, Mr. Johnny Jones, and so many others that served in these categories. Under his leadership, the Patriotic Tea started. The first one was held at the Sheraton Hotel. Mrs. Annabelle Thomas, General Missionary President, was our first chairman. The tea was held in February, and it was to honor our founding forefathers. Also, Pastor Jones started the citywide revival, had invited ministers from all over the United States. If I'm not mistaken, he also started the Interdenominational Minister Alliance. Pastor Jones didn't mind stepping across the aisle to visit and welcome other faiths. He also had his own spiritual friends that he had close contact with, such as Reverend Willie Williams, New Hope Baptist Church, Reverend Dave Davis, Great Friendship Baptist Church, and Reverend West from St. Paul Baptist Church. In that, from the notes that I have, the last 4 years, I should say, and 7 months, the Lord was good to us, and we brought in through many dangers, toils, and membership road. Our income quadrupled. The parsonage was bought and paid for, and he bought and paid for a new van purchase, $20,000 of property, brought 2 new Sunday school classes were established, and a house was given to us on Bursell Street. And we were averaging about 15 people attending the National Baptist Convention. On the other side, Pastor Jones was a true minister who enjoyed eating. Often on Saturday mornings, the pastor, Mrs. Jones, and mother would have a group of church members over for Saturday morning breakfast. We all would eat, talk, and laugh. They stayed in the community on the corner of Bertrand and Meade Streets, and their doors were always open for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or just a chat. Reverend Jones had an infectious laughter. He loved telling funny stories and teasing you. Boy, could he tease you. He was a hard worker who would get into the trench with you. He was also a gracious man who loved to wear cowboy hats, cowboy boots, and those tiny neckties that cowboys wore. He never thought of a situation as an obstacle that he could not overcome. Even though his stay was short, to think about what he accomplished during that time period was God's great divine intervention. Thank you for allowing me to share some moments about Pastor Jones.
Oh my goodness, Pat, that brings back memories. It brings back so many memories. And you think about things that we do today, we just think we do them today. But
Yes,
it had to have a start, it had to have a beginning.
Yes.
And he brought all this to a beginning.
Yes, and I forgot to say that he started the birthday rally. It was the birthday rally, now it's the March rally.
Yes. So we're continuing on
Yes.
with what it was that he started.
Yes, indeed.
But you know, I
Yes,
truly
please.
believe that they say when you're here for a short time, God has a purpose and a plan for you. His purpose was to get this beautiful church
Absolutely.
built. And I
Absolutely.
thank you for this beautiful church that I'm a part of. And I thank you for sharing your knowledge about Reverend Jimmy Jones and what he has meant and what he has done for Greater St. John Missionary Baptist Church. Now that we've heard about Reverend Jimmy Jones and we've gotten a little more insight and a little bit more memory of him, why are you still here?
Because this is my church. This is the church I was baptized in. This was the church I grew up in. This was the church I participated in. My mother, my sisters. This is the church I love. And that is why I'm here.
Wonderful. I'm glad you're here. Now listen, let me ask you something else. Are there any auxiliaries or functions that you've participated in or that you are participating in?
Yes, I am currently in Missionary Circle number 7. No, I'm sorry, missionary number 8. I used to be number 7. I'm currently in missionary circle number 8. I used to be the general missionary president. And right now, due to other things, I'm not able to participate, but I will as soon as I get back to church.
Okay, well, once again, thank you, Pat, for all that wealth of knowledge. And again, I say to all of you sitting out there looking at us, we got more to come, so stay tuned. Thank you.